I love this Pottery Barn ghost wreath, but not for the price, so let's make it for under $10. I headed to Dollarama and I got one of their wooden wreaths. Then I picked up 2 of these styrofoam balls. They were the medium size. I grabbed some cheesecloth. I got 2 of these. Then I got 1 pack of fairy lights, and then I got this twine to hang my wreath from my door. Because we want our wreath to blend in with our ghost, I went in and painted the entire thing white. I didn't paint the backside. I just did the front and edges just because you're not going to see the back. I already had this paint at home, so this is not factored into the cost to this project, and neither is the black paint that we're using. Once our wreath was painted, I set it aside and then I started cutting our cheesecloth, and here I was just guesstimating the size on what I needed for our styrofoam balls, but we want them to be completely covered. You also want it to be large enough so that there is some dangling at the end, so it really looks like a ghost, so kind of like you're seeing there. When you are satisfied with the length of the cheesecloth, you can then go in and put some glue on there to hold it in place. Our glue gun and glue sticks were also not factored into the cost of this project because I already had this at home. Once the glue was on, I then just folded over the cheesecloth and held it in place until it was nice and secure, and then I repeated this process on the other side of our styrofoam balls. And I did forget to mention this part, which is really important. I did do 2 layers of cheesecloth here just because I found one wasn't enough to cover my ghost fully. Once the cheesecloth was on securely, I went in and I started painting the eyes on my ghost. This was one of the funnest parts of this project. It was so fun putting on the little eyes, and they just got cuter and cuter the more I added and shaped the eyes, and it was just so much fun. I felt like each ghost had its own personality based on the eyes I painted. Then you're just repeating this process with all your ghosts that you're making. So I made them one at a time and I was laying them on my wreath as I went just to make sure I had enough. Before I started putting any ghosts on permanently, I took the twine that we bought from Dollarama and I put it in those 2 holes that you're seeing there, and this is going to be where I'm hanging my wreath from the door. So I weaved my twine through here, and then I just twisted it over and over again to secure it on. And here you can see how it created a little hook for me to put onto my door. And now came the funnest part of this project, which was putting our ghosts on our wreath. So while I was doing this, I was putting a crap load of glue on the back of them just because I didn't want them to fall off. And when I first started doing this, I was putting them all in the same line around my wreath, but I wasn't happy with how that looked at the end. So I ended up taking them off and then staggering my ghosts. So doing 1 ghost at the top of the wreath, then 1 at the bottom, and just going like that all the way on. And it just looked way more organic and natural. So definitely do it that way. Before putting all my ghosts on, I left the base of the wreath empty because I had to use twine again to hold the fairy lights. So if you don't care if yours lights up or not, you can just skip this step and finish putting your ghosts on. But because I wanted mine to light up, I'm just repeating the process that I did at the very beginning that I showed you. So repeat this process underneath, and you're going to make it a little tighter because you want your fairy light battery pack to sit there snug. Once you have your twine in place, then you can go ahead and glue on the rest of your ghosts. Before putting my ghosts in their forever spot, when I got to the end of this project, I did just lay them out to make sure all the spacing is right, because if you're doing it snug against each one, you might end up having a weird gap at the end. So I would recommend doing a dry fit first. Once all your ghosts have been put into place and they're completely dry, you can flip your wreath over and slide in that battery pack into the little twine cocoon you made. Once the battery pack is in place, I just started twisting the lights in and out of my ghosts. There isn't a right or wrong way to do this. I didn't want to be able to see my lights, so I was putting them quite far back between my ghosts and getting them in those cracks pretty good. And just like that, you've DIY'd your own Pottery Barn ghost wreath. If you liked this video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on future DIYs. Got your eye on something else that feels way too expensive? Drop it in the comments and I'll try to show you how to DIY it for less.